Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio. Your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Get ready for Talking Heads, the show where expert insights meet world-class education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. Brought to you by USA Global TV and Radio. Meet our distinguished presenters. From the great state of Texas, longevity expert, award-winning author, publisher, and distinguished Toastmaster, Red O'Loughlin. From London, England, soul heart awakener, novelist, vocal coach, and artist, Dr. Madeline Chan. Also from England, the Harley Street stress expert, therapist, ambassador for peace, and speaker, Carolyn Heward. And from Australia, ICF PCC credentialed coach, entrepreneur, and leadership coach, Mariska Dupria. Experience their expertise, connect with their wisdom, and transform your perspective. Watch Talking Heads on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. This video and its contents are the property of USA Global TV and Radio. All rights reserved. Terms and conditions apply. Visit usaglobaltv.com for more details.
Howdy, y'all. Red O'Loughlin here. We're on Talking Heads on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. And if you noticed last week, I was not here. We didn't have a show. I was on vacation. It does happen. Sometimes it happens 2 or 3 times a year. Sometimes it doesn't happen at all. But we've all been in that situation. We have a vacation. We plan on going. And sometimes it's absolutely fantastic. And other times we come back so worn out that we wish we had time for another vacation. So let's go ahead and get my slides loaded up for today. And I'm going to talk a little bit about my vacation I was just on. But I also want to bring in periodically some aspects of health and wellness because I think are important, particularly on the kind of vacation you're doing. Why the topic, but I was on vacation. Several times over my life, I've had people come back from vacation and they're trying to get things done. And all of a sudden, but I was on vacation. And it's like, that's an automatic excuse that they can't get what was done in a time frame done, their deadlines, whatever it was before they left on vacation, well before. But I was on vacation. It's like that was the excuse that wiped out any other commitment they had. And so I think a lot of us heard that before. But we're seeing today here on the USA Global TV and Radio Network, live streaming on a lot of shows, Amazon Fire, Zizzle TV, E360 TV, many sites on YouTube, Android TV, Apple TV, social media. I think we just added TikTok and X, and I know there's a bunch of others that are podcasts or after the fact audio broadcasts. But as always, my presentations are for awareness and education. I am not a doctor, and we'll get into that in just a minute. Red O'Loughlin, my website is redolaughlin.com. That's REDOLAUGHLIN, redolaughlin.com. And I have a lot of information there. Most of it focuses on my author writing ability, about 1,500 blogs, and a lot of information there on health and wellness. We'll cover that here in just a minute. So, but a lot of the, not a lot, all of the shows live and the archives are found on USA Global TV and Radio Network on YouTube. Go there. Pretty easy to find just about anything. And on my website, which is still under construction but functional, I have all the archive shows there myself. Okay. I'm not a medical expert. I've never been a doctor, never been in that field, never been in the pharmaceutical field, but I'm a researcher. I love it. I research the human body at the cellular level. I look for cause and effect relationships. This came about from my working with Halliburton, identifying what caused failures to happen either in the manufacturing environment, and transportation, in the functional environment of downhole, a lot of things. But I'm looking at, why did that happen? Okay, well, if that happened, why did that happen? And you go down 4, 5, 6, 7 different levels of why to get to what's called the root cause. And if you know what the root cause is and you can make changes to that root cause, then that should eliminate that root cause from occurring again. So I specialize in root cause relationships, primarily from a health perspective. What happens in our bodies? What can we control? If all we're doing is putting a Band-Aid on it, treating symptoms, the cause is still there. It's not going away. But anyway, my first degree is chemistry. That's what I use nowadays. I get 5 academic degrees and a bunch of professional certifications. None of my academic degrees are in the same topics, just depending on where I was at in my life as to what was required for my civilian and military jobs. So retired military Navy captain, over 31 years, been to 62 countries, been married 56 years. Here in another month or two, in fact, in July, it'll be 57 years. We have 2 kids, 3 grandkids, and our first great grandson just turned a year at the beginning of this year. Best-selling author. I have 8 books out. I have 2 in process right now of completing this year. Also an independent publisher, probably over 40, almost 50 books for other authors. Distinguished Toastmaster, and I've written over 100, over 1,000 actually. LinkedIn articles, almost all in some aspect of health or wellness, and they're all original content. As I mentioned previously, all of my presentations are for educational purposes only. If you have a problem, especially if I bring up something in a presentation that deals with health and wellness, talk to a professional before you arbitrarily just take and do something. I've been very fortunate. Last year, 2024, I was the number 2 and number 6 presenter on The Wise Ones, and I feel pretty thankful for that. Failure is not an option. It's one of the last books I wrote. It talks about primarily the lessons learned during the early NASA program when they're trying to put a man on the moon and get him back to Earth safely. And so when I'm looking at, but I was on vacation. Well, in a sense, I wanted to make sure that the vacation was successful. So did I use some of the things that were on my book? In a sense, but not really. But I'm still advertising a book because it's my show, and I can. So with that particular one, I think there's a lot of value because I go into some things in this book that just aren't in other books on how do you succeed. And that I think is of immense value. So what is vacation? An extended period of time for leisure and recreation. Can you do it at home? Yeah, you can. Some people do. They want to save the money. But it's usually away from home. Is there travel involved? Well, if you're at home, not really. But for most of us, we get on an airplane. Some of us get on a ship. Others get in the car and just drive. But yeah, there's some travel involved. Sometimes we go home to see family. Sometimes we just want to jump on a train and go across Canada or whatever it may happen to be. But travel is involved in most of our vacations. And because travel is involved, we generally have to schedule it in advance. If I want a cheaper price on my airfare, I got to do it months in advance. I can't wait till the week of and then make it happen. Why do we go on vacation? Well, I think for most of us, it's mental health. We want to get away from the daily grind of everything. And as such, the outgrowth of that or the results of that is stress management. I've changed my environment. I no longer have my boss, my coworkers. I'm no longer fighting issues at home. I'm in a stress-free environment, in theory. I want to go on vacation so that when I come back, my productivity increases. Or sometimes I take my vacation and I want to do something on my vacation for my hobby, for my side gig, for whatever it may happen to be, so that I can actually see some productivity this year in order to gain more money, gain more credibility, gain more whatever that thing is in your life that you want. Some people, they want to enrich relationships. So they take the family with them, or we took a vacation to Hawaii, 12 years ago, I guess. My mom was in her final years, but she was fully functional and mobile, and we took her to Hawaii, and it was a great trip. Had a wonderful time with my mom. She passed away a couple of years after that. So sometimes those relationships are a focus of vacation. Sometimes we get away from everything so we can boost creativity. We want to burn out, and that's a big one for people who are in real high stress jobs. Many of us, me particularly, we want quality time with our loved ones, and most of the time that's our spouse. And so you have that, yeah, you have time one on one at home, but it's not the same thing at home as it is somewhere else. Uh, Many of us just want to visit new places or visit places we haven't been to in 50 years and see how they changed. But for all of us, I think we want a better quality of life, and a vacation helps tremendously. What were my vacations? Rest, relaxation, recuperate, recharge, all that R&R stuff you hear about. Uh, but basically, have fun, escape. I have a tendency, if I see somebody coming at me and they got a smile and it stays there for a while, it's just not a temporary. It says, "Ah, I see you're having a lot of fun," or "You're ODing on fun." But I usually make some comment about them and fun. I did that several times on the cruise because there was a lot of people there having fun. But I usually comment because you don't see people smiling very often. Uh, Escape, get away from the daily grind. Adventure, learning something new. Big one, absolutely, is creating memories. Uh, Having bragging rights. First one on your first kid on the block. I remember as a kid, they used to have commercials and be the first kid on your block to have the Davy Crockett, whatever it may happen to be, or whatever other thing was on TV that they were advertising for kids. But as being the first kid on your block to do that. But bragging rights, yeah, went to London, whatever it may happen to be, and nobody else on the block has been to London, so you have some degree of bragging rights. What generally happens? Well, the first thing you find out is that you're going to have a delay. You're going to have a delay while you're waiting to get from wherever you're at, whether you go to the airport or to the cruise dock or whatever. You're going to have delays. There may be weather issues. Uh, there may be more expensive than planned. Most of these things you kind of pay for in advance, but there's always that hidden thing that you didn't find about. I remember going on a vacation down in Dominican Republic. Probably the two most expensive things unplanned was the cost of taxis and the cost of Wi-Fi. Just exceptionally expensive. You have crowds. Yeah, you have to expect that. If you're on vacation, there's very few places you can go on vacation and not have some level of crowds. Which when crowds means you're gonna have a longer time waiting. And because of crowds, you probably have some conflicts, some disagreements. Uh, you're going to be tired because, well, I was up all night drinking, having fun, doing whatever. And so you have that tired. You may be cramped because of who knows what. And many of us have a tendency, oh, that's neat. I need to have one of those. And then you get home and you find out, I didn't really need to have that, but we bought it anyway. And we always have that constant worry about we left the house, who's taking care of the yard, what's going on at work, what about my pets? Lots and lots of things to worry about. But you're on vacation. You're not supposed to worry about that because that's all covered, but you're still on vacation. So my wife and I spent 7 days on our first cruise ever. We cruised out of Galveston, a couple places down in Mexico and to Honduras. And all in all, I think it went pretty well. I'd been to 61 countries. I got my wife to 31. And so most of my travel was military. She wasn't allowed to go with me. But if I got to a place like Germany, I would bring her over for a number of months at a time. And we would get the chance to, I think she's been to 24 countries in Europe. But we'd had a chance to do a lot of travel together. And the travel may have been, let's drive down to Barcelona for the weekend. Whatever it may happen to be, we would have a lot of that time together. Sometimes the travel was very extensive. You're going for, our travel together. I think probably the most expensive one was to Spain. The two of us walked the Camino de Santiago in 2016. It's a 500-mile walk across Spain. We started in southwestern France, walked over the Pyrenees Mountains, and then to Santiago de Compostela. And it took us 30 days to walk 500 miles. But human behavior is human behavior. It doesn't matter where in the world you are, what culture you're at, time of day, whatever. But what do I mean by human behavior? Well, on this particular cruise, these are my personal observations. There was over 4,100 passengers and over 1,300 crew members. that's a major city for a lot of us here in South Texas. I mean, uh, it just that's a big place to be. I wouldn't say major city, but that's certainly definitely a good sized city. Uh, Lots and lots and lots of options for entertainment, for eating, for excursions. So if you want to do things, it's your choice not to do them because there are so many things there to do. And there were quite a few things that I turned down because no, I don't think so. And I look, yeah, that'd be neat to do. And I did do quite a few of those, but I had options. I knew when they were, I knew where they were. I kind of had an expectation for what was going to be there, but those options included a lot of things. Eating and drinking, for instance, seemed to be prevalent. Now, I will point out that I thought, all in all, on the cruise, there were more people there that were friendly and helpful, lots and lots and lots of smiles, than I'd see typically in an airport. We went to a resort in Phoenix, not Phoenix, Tucson last year for a military reunion, and just don't see the same. I did comparing the two. We were there for 5 days. Don't see the same level of friendliness that I did on the boat. Maybe just the environment, maybe the crowd I was with. But you also have the gambling, the drinking, the eating, the overall indulgence in just about anything you want. Lots and lots of things to do. My observations. I gained 3 pounds in 7 days, but it's all water weight. I used to do this quite a bit. I was living in Germany for a couple of years toward the end of the 90s, and I would go down to Italy and pig out for a long weekend, 3 days, and I would gain 12 pounds, come back, and 2 weeks later it's all gone. So I know that most of the stuff that I ate went to water weight gain, and it doesn't take very long, a day or two or three, and a pound a day, boom, it's gone. So I wasn't too concerned about what I was eating on a short-term basis. The biggest problem is coming back home and continuing that same eating. I generally do not eat breakfast. My first meal of the day is usually around 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and that many times is my last meal of the day. I'm on 1 meal a day program. But down on the boat, we were eating 2 meals a day, a pretty decent sized breakfast. They had some great omelets. I could have them just about any way I wanted. It took me a little while to figure out how to order the omelet exactly the way I wanted because I don't like the eggs burned. I like them not like I like my scrambled eggs a lot softer than most people like, but you can't do that with an omelet per se. But I also am done eating by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and many times we didn't have it. A 5:30 was a dinner appointment, and we go there, and by the time you finished eating dinner at 7 p.m., we go down to the bar, have a drink or two, and so it's late in the day when you're eating, drinking. By the time that you get back home, your cabin, and you crash, read a little bit, sit out on the balcony. Um, that extra drinking and everything just kind of really changed my perspective on things. So, but what did I notice? Lots of elevators. You got to move people between floors. We were on the ninth floor. The 10th floor above us was where the restaurants were at. It was where the pools were at. So if we had a choice of taking the elevator up, we could, but it was just as easy to take the stairs. Most of the time, going up a single flight of stairs is not a big deal. Or we could go down 4 or 5 flights of stairs to another area where they had dining. But the elevators was something that you waited some time because just a lot of people moving, particularly if it's after an entertainment event or after eating. You go out into the area, and yeah, there's 40, 50, 60 people there waiting to go somewhere else in the boat. Food lines wasn't too bad. I finally figured out in breakfast where the lines really began and in which restaurants where they really began. So sometimes it's best to just to sit back and observe. Okay, that's where it's at. Then you get up there and you kind of clarify it. Because I started in one line and noticed that, okay, I finally get to where I want to be for omelets, but that's not the omelet line. I got to get behind another line. Other times that there's not enough room to have the line go the way it's supposed to go. Ask questions. I chose after that, I would go to the people before it opened and say, what do I need to do? And at the pasta bar, that worked out exceptionally well. I was first one there. A lot of little nuances, and I had the ability, okay, fine, I'm number one. This is what I want to have done. I knew in advance, and it worked beautifully. Now, for entertainment, most of the time it was pretty good. There were some things that it sounded good, but the actual execution, was I entertained? Yeah. Was it as successful as some other entertainment? No. Could I have had others? Absolutely. But most of the time we were there for fun, and entertainment was a subset of that. So I tried to I tried to catch what I could, but I didn't want to be going from one place to another to another to another. I wanted to have some downtime. Duration, I thought 7 days. The first time out of the boat for a boat, out of the boat, first time on a cruise ship, uh, to me seemed to be a little long, and maybe because I was limited, even though I got off the boat 3 times, it just seemed to be a little limited. Don't know why, just an observation in my brain. Now, I chose in advance. I didn't want to watch TV. I didn't want to have Wi-Fi. I wanted to have time away from the digital world, and I pretty much succeeded. I bought a Wi-Fi pass in Honduras, and I was able to catch up on a few things, social media, a couple things here, there, and yonder, make a phone call. But in reality, I was glad I didn't do that. 7 days, not a big deal. But yes, I was ready to get home when I got home. How did this compare to other vacations? Well, I've been to Bora Bora twice. The first time I went there with the military, we flew from California to Hawaii, picked up almost a dozen scientists. They were doing equatorial water research of the Pacific Ocean. And so we were flying out. We had a bunch of sonobuoys, they call them bathythermoscape, and we dropped these things starting at about, I think, every 30 miles from 10 degrees north to 10 degrees south. And the scientists would take the information that we got off of the BT buoys and start plugging that in. And when we got back on the reverse end of that trip, one of the scientists came by and said, I think we can truthfully say we learned at least 10% or maybe more of all the stuff that's ever been known about equatorial Pacific waters on that one mission. And they continued this for quite a few years after we finished. But I went down there. I had a great time. I had a friend of mine tell me a long time ago that if I ever landed in Tahiti, get on the very first airplane and go to Bora Bora. Don't even think about it. Just do it. So I did. Literally, I left the very next morning out of Papeete and flew to Bora Bora. I went to Club Med, spent the day there. Actually spent the night there and another night at Club Med in Moorea. But I took my wife down there and we spent 2 weeks at Club Med at Bora Bora. Had an absolutely wonderful time. Hong Kong, took my wife there when I was flying out of Vietnam way back when. Different environment then as it is now. I think I've been to literally almost every capital in Europe. I might have missed one or two, but I've been to pretty much all of them several times. Prague is definitely my favorite beyond. Well, favorite big capital is Prague. My favorite little capital is Ljubljana, Slovenia. I think it's just a really neat place. Peru, we were down there for a couple of weeks. Went to Machu Picchu, and they have a mountain. You see Peru in the background of Machu Picchu. There's a mountain. It's kind of a sugarloaf thing. It's called Huayna Picchu. And you go down about 500 feet, and then you come back up, and it's about 1,000 feet or higher above Machu Picchu. It's called Huayna Picchu. And it takes about 45 minutes to do the climb. It's a pretty easy one. And I got a chance to stand literally on the top of that and look down on Machu Picchu. Great place. If you ever get a chance and you're in Machu Picchu, plan accordingly. They usually shut down that option of climbing that mountain at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. But you got to log in and log out because they've had problems there in the past. Tangiers is another place that I thought was interesting in Morocco. We took a ferry across the Straits of Gibraltar. Interesting in many regards because we had a nice place, but for whatever reason, they had a water problem. Nowhere else in the city, but the place we chose for 4 nights had a water problem. So we were buying big bottles of water to put in the toilet in order to flush the toilet. And then obviously we had a problem with showers because we didn't have access to one. But it was one of those things you learn. Going to the Casbah, doing some shopping, doing a lot of things, a lot of travel in and around Tangiers out there on the prairie, so to speak, desert. A lot of interesting things there. I've been to literally 48 of the 50 states. I still have a couple to get through. Hawaii, we lived there for 3 years. But I've been there before I was living there, and I've been there at least a dozen times since I left. Hawaii's nice. Tahiti's nicer, but again, it's what you expect. Bermuda's an interesting place, especially since they drive on the opposite side of the road from the United States. Azores, Bangkok is an amazing place. Alaska, many, 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 many more places that we've been to. But the main focus of today's presentation, I wanted to kind of link some of my background travel so I can give you a perspective of my mindset when I go on to a vacation and tie it into some aspect of health because that's usually what I represent with my presentations. So, can vacation improve your health? Absolutely, no doubt in my mind. But you have to have that right mindset and things have to click right. So the vacation, you're getting out of a burnout situation, you're stress relief, lots of things vacation can do. So I think absolutely 2 thumbs up, vacation can improve your health, your mental health, your emotional health, and your physical health. But does it? Well, I think for most of it, it does. But it's like anything else. With stress, we reach out, we grab a hold of it, and we don't let go. Well, if we're not letting go of stress, we're not improving our mental and emotional health. So, is it a top goal when you go on vacation? Is it just to get away from the boss, get away from the grind? Or is it to take your wife out and have some fun, take the kids out? Lots of family. I mean, I was amazed at how many people are on board on the family level. But sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But I think you come back, yeah, you gain a little bit of weight. Maybe there's some other issues there, but in general, I think the vacations are very helpful. Cruise vacations, I think, have their place, but I think it's a different mindset than when you jump on an airplane and you fly over to Madrid and you spend 2 weeks there or in the countryside. But what I observed was there's little movement. I see the same people in the same locations. If I'm going by and I'll look over the edge and I see a particular couple, maybe because of the clothes they're wearing or the hairstyle or some other aspect, and I come back a half hour later and I'm wandering around, I come back an hour later, they're still there at the bar or they're still there on the laying out in the sun, whatever it may happen to be. Very little movement. I tried to plan a lot of walking in. I'll talk about that here in just another slide or two. But there's an opportunity for movement, but it doesn't always happen. And I can understand you get tied up with somebody, have a conversation, and my goodness, I mean, I was in Honduras and I'm walking up to buy a ticket for Wi-Fi. So the guy standing there, he had just bought a ticket, and he asked me how I was doing. I told him, and I said, I just checked off the number 62 place that I've been to in the world. He says, hey, that's neat. This is number 66 for me. I said, wow, that's neat. I said, well, it's my first cruise. He said, it's my first cruise too. So we had a little conversation there. And so sometimes we get involved in these little conversations and 5 minutes turns into a half hour. So I understand how sometimes you end up being in the same place for a long time. But you end up in eating and drinking. My eating at night was an hour and a half. My eating in the breakfast, for breakfast, at least a half hour, 45 minutes. It wasn't binging, but I noticed a lot of people, I mean, their plates were piled high. It was unbelievable because there was no limit on how much you could have. A lot of noise. Particularly noticed it ashore in restaurants more so than on the boat. The noise was a little bit more subdued, but it got to be annoying after a while, especially since you're in your room or you're in an area where it's relatively quiet. Then all of a sudden you're inundated. It is what it is. But health consciousness was not evident. Yes, there was gyms, there were spas, they were available, they were used by some. I even used one of them myself. I bought a small package, and I wanted to get an idea for what it was, what the accoutrements were, what was available, how much things cost. And so, yeah, it filled out my block that I needed to know what was on board, what was there. Gym rather small, but okay. But there weren't lines. I'll tell you that. There was not a line going into any of the spa area or gym areas. Spending expectations, like most vacations, if you pay for in advance, you get there and whatever you have in your pocket, you pay for trinkets to bring back. Paid for it, yeah. Was it worth it? Yeah, probably so. I can't complain. I thought the price was right. Did I enjoy it? Absolutely, no doubt in my mind. The food was good most of the time. I didn't go to a particular place because I don't want that one. I'm going to try something else. But okay, I really want this prime rib or whatever the meal was. And I get there and I get a poor choice of the cooking was not as well as I would like it. And my sister's next to me says, "Well, send it back." And I said, "Well, I'm eating half of it and I'm already full. I don't need to send it back." But sometimes they don't always do what you want. My wife's not a big eater, and we were having prime rib that night and baked potato. And I said, when I ordered, I said, cut it in half, cut the baked potato in half, leave it in the restaurant. I don't want to be able to throw it away. And I said, most of the time I eat what her leftover is. And if I'm having a big piece of prime rib, I'm not going to be able to eat everything else there. Well, they brought her out the smallest piece I could find, but that wasn't what we ordered. So sometimes you got to be a little assertive in order to get what you want. And so you cut into something and there's a lot of gristle there, send it back because that's what they're. And at the end, we told him, he says, "Hey, I really appreciate what you're telling me. I need to be able to give feedback to them so they know what's going on." So I have some calamari. They were a bit dry. I bet they were. Uh, and so I learned immediately is that if something is not right, particularly in the food around, tell them because you need to be able to improve their quality as much as anything else. And that's something I do generally almost anywhere I go. Spa treatments were expensive. It is what it is. But for people laying out on the deck, a lot of overexposure to the sun, a lot of slip and slide. Now, I like the sun, but being a redhead, I got to be very careful about how much exposure I get. But sunlight is, it produces, it's the only thing that helps our bodies produce vitamin D3. And it's a pro-hormone. It's a hormone our bodies make, and yet we do everything in our power to avoid it. But my expectations were met. I was on vacation. How can you not have an expectation met? And I would definitely do it again. I would definitely do a cruise again. Would I be the same cruise? I don't know. To be determined. I think it depends on how long I'm going to be gone and what ports am I going to go to, and then what are my expectations. What would I prefer next time? Well, we had a balcony. It was midship. It's pretty high up, easy access to the main areas. I like that. And so that's probably what I would do again. I think the balcony is a major plus in whatever I had. It was worth the difference in price. Now, I would go out and I'd walk around. And I remember going out one morning and my phone was 2%. So I plug in a portable battery charge. I go out and walk around and come back 23 steps. I'm thinking to myself, something's wrong. So I disconnected. I now had 20%. And I walk around again, 880 steps. So 850 steps was my first one around that I didn't get recorded. But at least it gave me a perspective of if I could walk around this floor. And so I start on number 9 where I was at, and I go to 8, and I go to 7, and go to 6, and I take different floors, or I walk around upstairs around the pool areas and upstairs above that. So, but what I didn't do, and I should have done, was okay. Let me do my morning walk, an afternoon walk, and an evening walk, and kind of spread that out. Now my focus was on 10,000 steps a day. I think I averaged 6 or 7,000, but I wanted to, if I were doing it again, I'd want to extend that exercise throughout the day rather than focus it all in within an hour or two. I definitely have a better attention toward food selections. And yeah, I probably did overdrink a bit more than I do. Yeah, not probably, absolutely did. A little bit more moderation on the choice of the drinks and on the amount of the drinks. Mental health, basically the same prescription you'd have at home: quality sleep, diet, exercise, concentrate on your relationships, relaxation, socialize a bit more, because now we're starting to get that mental aspect of things in there. And then I think I would probably try to find, there's definitely some very quiet spots on the boat, on the ship. And you don't always get them right away, but you can come back later. Okay, it's open. Be prepared to go ahead and commandeer an area for a half hour, 45 minutes, and just relax, calm down, meditate, whatever you do, breathe. One thing I did notice right away is I don't need to be the first one off the boat ship. Keep calling a boat a ship. And when we were in port, getting ready to get off of Mexico or in Honduras, and you're trying to be there and you're fighting everyone else, well, when you board and when you exit, they have you in groups. And there's a good reason for it, 4,000 plus people. But when you try to take those same 4,000 plus people, and there's not groups you're getting off, everybody's getting off at the same time or when they want, let the first hour go by, walk down calmly, get off, and you, a much better deal. Same thing getting back. Get back an hour or two before everything is done. You're there. They tell you take your passport just in case you lose lose connection and you got to travel somewhere else, at least you have a passport. But mindfulness, forgiveness, flexibility, adapt, all those things are absolutely critical when you're on vacation, particularly if you want to improve your mental health. What about our emotional health? It's very similar, but we're going to be focusing more on stress relief and on relaxation. Listen more, don't interrupt people, enjoy the experience, disconnect from technology. That's hard for some of us to do. I brought 2 books. I wish I'd brought 3, but read. I love to people watch. I picked that up, many, many years ago, decades ago. You're going someplace, and I love doing that in various places in Europe. They have the tables outside, sit down, get a bottle of wine, and just watch people for a couple hours, go back and forth. And just, I find that to be a very fascinating way. You're relaxing, you're seeing things going on, you're having a little conversation, drinking a little bit. Very easy way to relax, be grateful for what you have, be thankful. I did notice that my naps were more often and longer than what they are at home. Definitely a plus. Physical health. Big deal here because there's so many things there that work against you. Keep hydrated. The water, absolutely make sure you have plenty of it. Buffet awareness, portion control, get the right balance of foods. Nutritional balance is super critical, especially if you're looking at your health. Take the stairs more often. It's one of those things that, why not do it? You're not in a hurry, take your time. Exercise, well, stair climbing is exercise. Walking is exercise. Sun protection, how long do you be out there? What do you need? What makes sense? What time of the day is it? Are you in the shady area of the boat? You're still going to get sunlight even if you're in the shade. Focus on the quality of your sleep. Moderate your alcohol. Gambling is an area, you walk through that place and it's smoking. It's the only area in the boat I think you can smoke. There may have been a couple other areas, but they were very emphatic about smoking. If you smoke on your balcony, it's a $500 fine. I'm not a smoker, never have been. But I do enjoy gambling, but I don't like the electronic gambling that you find almost prevalent everywhere. Decades ago when you're pulling the handle, that was kind of neat. But I would walk by and come back an hour or so later and the same people, same location. Is that enjoyment of life? Hey, for them, it probably is. I'm not going to deny it. We all have our little quirks that we love to do. And if it's sitting at the bar and drinking and chatting for a couple hours with people, more power to you. But it's one of those things that can be addictive over time. So enjoy life, but just monitor what possible addictions might be out there. Can I improve my health on a cruise? I think you absolutely can, but it's going to require more focus than when you're at home because it's a hostile environment to health. And I find myself, I'm in lines, you talk more to people. Do it on purpose because wherever these people are from, talk. Otherwise, you're sitting there and you're getting frustrated because you're not moving. The stress is building up. Talk to somebody, have some fun. And I found that there were a lot of self-improvement talks available all day long. It's just amazing how many they had in a big auditorium area. Because you're in an area with 4,000 other people, 5,000 other people, may want to consider washing your hands a lot more often than you normally would, because there's just a lot of things that you touch and come in contact with. One of the things I noticed was that our brain age is, we never grow much older than about 24, 25 in our age, our brain age, but our body age gets up there in the decades and we have a critical misalignment. We think we're younger than we are. We can do stuff that we can't do, but our body function versus our capability is not the same. We don't have that stability or strength that we used to have. So we make stupid decisions. We fall, we hurt things. Anyway, just be aware you're not as young as you used to be. I can focus on health at a health resort. I can focus on health on a boat, but it's more difficult on a boat. Cruising, the primary focus there from what I saw is having fun. Yeah, I had a lot of fun. I would do it again. So health and fun can mix, but they usually don't. So what other options do you have? Not a whole lot, but I was on vacation. I had a good time. What can I say? That being said, I have a short trip planned to 3 other places, one out of the country here and then before the end of the year. But I do have thoughts for next year where I want to go. I'm working those out with my wife, and we'll definitely go on a longer vacation next year, not necessarily 7 days, but probably. But I don't know if it'll be a cruise next year or not. So with that, take care, y'all, and we'll catch you next week. Bye now.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USA Global TV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Music by Johnny Dies. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative Direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Copyright 2025. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.